depends on timestamp order now. We have determined that the two effects are not dependent on each other.
Right.
So you apply them in timestamp order.
Right.
So if Melira was already on the battlefield, and you activate Ink-Moth-Nexus's ability later, you have the loses infect effect, which applies first, and then the gains infect effect is applied. So it has infect, which of course doesn't do anything because your opponent can't get any poison counters.
I remember reading somewhere in the rules that can't override can. What was that, 6th edition rules?
Well, that still exists in the current rules. There's the golden rule that says that a rule or effect that says that something can't happen always takes precedence over.
So it's because Inkmoth says it ain't.
Neither of these says
Right.
can or can't.
Right. We're talking about the loses infect and the gains infect, and neither of those say can or can't. So the golden rule really is not applicable.
Yeah, the common thread between these, and these are a common sort of scenario that rules layers try to do, is they exploit some shortcut or some ambiguity. So it is obvious when we sit down and look at this impartially, oh yeah, it's obvious what both players are trying to do, and the active player is trying to do something sketchy. They're trying to say, oh, well, when you said X, what you really meant was Y. Or because you didn't say X, we assume something happens. And the rules lawyer is trying to control what the other person says. So, how do we know when we're in the main phase versus the upkeep?
I cast a sorcery.
Casting a sorcery, doing something you can only take at a specific time. Playing a land. How about another one, a big one?
Drew for turn.
Drawing a card for turn. It's the clear difference between upkeep and the draw step. How would we know for sure whether one player thinks the counterbalance trigger is still in the stack or not? Asking him is one.
Flipping a card over.
Flipping a card over. That's how we know that the player thinks this trigger is still in the stack, because he tries to resolve it.
I brought a problem. What is the problem? Let me give you 3 examples of what I have in mind. For example, this is no longer a current ruling that goes like 2 years back, right? You have a player in your GPT, right, who comes from a different store. And at that store, they had a house rule, and it was posted on the wall. First mulligan is free. Okay? So he comes to your event, it's a GPT, it's competitive, right? And he does what he thinks, what he is entitled to. He takes his first mulligan and it's free. His opponent calls you over, right? And you say, well, that was intentional manipulation of game materials, and you DQ him for cheating. Right? That was the official ruling two years ago. And maybe everything inside you cries out and says, this is so wrong, right? This is so wrong, right? He didn't know better. We will lose him. And he brought 20 friends. We will lose them all for organized play. So, what are the rules or the principles or the insights or maybe just the gut feelings, right, that guide us in such a situation, right? When your own gut feeling and the official, right, the official answer, right, clash like this, right? What do you do in these situations? Let me give you.
Okay, so here we are, we're at round 3, and we had a player that was dropped accidentally in round 2, but we've already paired, and we've already moved on to round 3. So what we want to do is we want to go back here to the Players tab, and we want to scroll through, and we want to find the dropped player. Oh, we want to click all first, that helps. Alright, so we want to find the dropped player, and then we want to re-enroll them. And then we want to update. And then we go back to the rounds, and he should have a bye, I believe. Okay, so now the player is back in, but we have one player that has a bye, and we have a player that's been re-enrolled. So what you want to do is try to match them up. So you want to unmatch the bye, and then you want to match up these 2 players and enter them back into the tournament.
Ask somebody, okay.
Now
let me just get your name here. How's your tournament been going? What deck have you been playing? How long have you been playing? Some kind of things that they know an answer for, to try to get a read of what their normal conversation pattern and how they're answering those questions. And then then you go into the, okay, just run through this for me again. Just tell me what happened again. And you might have some questions. Has this come up before in your game? For the opponent who called you over, notice this. What stood out? What made you notice this? Again, I don't have a real specific script for this. It's going to depend on exactly what the situation is. How has he been shuffling before? Was it different this game? Or how do you normally shuffle? What's your normal pattern there? Another thing you can do, repeat the story back to them. Now, let me see if I got this straight. And then send it back to them in their own words. But you're also kind of paying attention to what it is they're telling you. There are changes and there are changes in stories. Memory is incredibly flexible, and the way it works is actually more like every time we pull a memory out of the brain, we kind of go through it and then we re-put it back in, and so it changes a little bit. That's actually normal. That happens to all of us, and sometimes you realize that over time. That's why you get like conflicting memories. If there's like family events, you and a brother or sister remember something entirely different. That's the kind of thing that's going on in the brain. So if somebody has little changes in their story, well, maybe it's about 7-8 seconds that he was thinking, and that was at least 15 seconds. Yeah, it was about 5 seconds. That's little shifts that are going on. It could be cheating. It could very likely be normal. When you get a whole flip, the drastic change in the story, something completely changes. Sure, that card's in my main deck. What's that card doing there? And then, okay, here's your list. Oh, well, I wrote on my deck list at the last minute, so yeah, it probably is supposed to be in my sideboard. Okay, you knew it. You knew it either one way or the other. Here, I've brought up the problem. You're coming up with a completely different explanation for it. So, look for those kind of flips in a story. That can be very indicative that something is going on, and this is more a lie than just the normal changes that happen.
Where's the cast of spell on MS? Where is that held on?
It's held at the University of Toledo. I live in Toledo, and there is a group of gamers at the University of Toledo called UT Bash, and they were very instrumental and helpful in helping me run this event by providing the venue. So that is why it is held at the university. Do it in March to stay away from things like regionals, and also to be within the school year, so that I have the students still there as attendees. And also, of course, there was a nice coincidence with it being MS Awareness Month. And in doing that and picking a better date, the event tripled in size. The second time I did it, I had 79 unique players and raised $1,350 for charity.
I have a player and a judge, and basically we're going to draw scenarios and role play them, see what happens, and if things go, and then once they're done, we'll ask for things that went well, things that went poorly, things that you would have done differently.
I'm looking at 6. What the hell, Adam, talk about? I'm looking at 6. What's that angry about? No, it's okay.
Easily would cut the deck.
Put your head up. 5. Not having much luck, huh? No, not at all. It's been like this the whole day. Sorry.
They never draw a lane. It's ridiculous.
You should let me play slicing.
Okay, so you're the judge.
Did you just throw your deck across the room?
No, my deck threw itself.
Right?
That's fine, I'll be right back.
No, I think we have a serious issue here, man. You have some problem with the tournament?
No, the tournament's having more of a problem with me.
You will lose more players by being unethical in your conduct. The rules are the rules. We try to enforce and support the judges as best we can. That should never happen.
Based on what they said, no two judges are going to be able to make that the same, especially because what they say and how they say it are different, right? So if a player says he says okay, and he meant it as I acknowledge, but he...
If you're working a big legacy or vintage event where there's thousands of dollars of cards around, just be really, really vigilant as you're walking through the event. Be very present in the tournament. Stay right in.
And the one big activity, he threw back, and then he just kind of sat back. And they joked with me when I came in. So I'm not sure. At that point, I'm not sure if I say, all right, come away from the table, we're going to go talk in the corner.